So how was the experience in reading and listening exam?
The end questions obviously have more weightage and they require more time and more attentiveness. They're more complex than the first 20. I would focus on that more rather than the four options given. The headphones there they have are not the best, they're just cheap, they won't cover your ear properly, they won't feel comfortable. The biggest difference was that B1 intensive is very targeted. This guy, he cleared TEF himself, and now he has a company where he helps people to clear the exam. So obviously, he's been through the process, knows what he's doing, so he can help us easily.
This TEF Canada success story will prove you that if you really put your mind into it, you can do it. Appaar cleared his TEF Canada in just first attempt, but right when he started learning French with Frenchify, he had one clear goal in mind: to clear the exam in just first attempt. And he gave his exam, he cleared all three modules, but the writing module he got CLB 5. And then rather than booking the next attempt, he was so confident that he actually wrote quite well, and he put the exam into re-evaluation with a proper application and gets CLB 8 in writing while clearing all the other aspects as well. And here is his score. So in this video, I'm going to do an interview with Appaar in which I will be discussing about his learning journey as well, how he prepared at B1, B2 levels for TEF Canada with Frenchify, study routine, how he was learning French to clear his TEF Canada exam, and what was the process of re-evaluation. So this interview is going to have a very useful information for you. Make sure to watch it until the end. Welcome to this video, Appaar. How are you doing today?
Good. Very happy. And yourself?
I'm doing well as well. Thank you so much. And finally, your hard work paid off. You cleared TEF Canada exam in your first attempt. Okay, and there is something which is even more for something which you should be more happy, because generally what I feel is ki people those who are giving IELTS or CELPIP exam, for them as well it takes a little bit of takes some attempts to clear, but you got in with TEF exam in just first attempt. How are you feeling?
I am feeling very happy about it and very proud that I was able to do it in the first attempt. That was my goal to begin with. But as we came closer to the exam, as we talked in the calls, I had a lot of self-doubt coming in. But yeah, in the end, you just need to have faith and keep working.
True. Now I know that because right from when you started with Frenchify, you always had a clear agenda. Ki TEF has to be cleared in your first attempt. You stayed focused on that goal, and I know you did not rush, because you were not like ki, okay, I'm just going to book my attempt. You were properly patient about it, and through a proper consistent effort on regular basis, you were able to clear your exam in just first attempt. And actually it happened. I'll give you guys a little bit of a backdrop that Appaar gave his first attempt on 15th December. He got NCLC 8 in reading, he got NCLC 10 in listening, in speaking he got NCLC 7, and in writing he got NCLC 5, which was 255 score. But then we decided ki okay, let's put this thing into re-evaluation, and then after the re-evaluation the score came, the score for writing got re-evaluated from NCLC 5 to NCLC 8, which made you clear the exam just in first attempt. Very well done, Appaar. And let's discuss so that other students are also able to learn from your journey, and they are able to get motivated, and they're able to follow the same footsteps as you took. Okay, so Appaar, I'll talk a little bit about your Frenchify learning timeline as well. You started with Frenchify on 26th February 2025. You started with B1 intensive program. Then you cleared B1. You went on to B2 intensive on 9th July 2025. And after 9th July up to December 15th 2025, that was the date when you cleared the exam. Now, when you were studying throughout these months, were there any pauses, or were you studying on regular basis? And generally, how many hours were you investing on regular basis?
So throughout these months since I joined, there was a good push in the initial B1, because that's the stage where you need to put the most time in order to bridge that gap between A2 and B1, because A2 is basically just grammar, basics. You're still, very low in the French language. But B1, the transition happens so quick, because now you're asking questions, you're doing speaking section A. So you have to give that intensive time to B1. And once that B1 was done for me, I felt like it was the first 2 3 months were very intensive. I had to put in a lot of time and get that mark up there, a lot of listening, reading, writing, because that's when you're initially starting to prepare for TEF. And yes, there was a break in the between. I had a summer vacation booked in Alberta, so I was almost not doing any French for 20 days. So there was that break. And then after that, I came back into it. I joined the B2 program. I was then we started doing B2 and I worked a lot on it. But then there was one more break where I had to move my houses. And but after the move was finally done, the last 2 months were like September, I moved, and then October, November, I was like, this is the final push. Because also I wanted to push myself because I was studying for 1 year and I was like, मैंने अभी तक अपना एक भी attempt नहीं दिया है, so I need to give at least one attempt before the year ends so I can push myself, because as if there's no attempt, there's no hurry behind you, right? So I booked that first attempt, but I wanted to make it my first and final attempt. So the last 2 months was like full on studying French. I think on an average, I would say earlier I used to give like 2 hours every day, and then weekends pe thoda zyada time de diya. But as soon as when it shifted to B2, it was like after work, come home, eat, and then study 6:30 पढ़ने बैठ गए, and then study till 9, 9:30, 10 till total exhaustion. At least cover 2 modules, listening or reading, या फिर switching around the 2 modules. But yeah, that was, I think, the last 2 months were the most intensive when I was thinking, reading, breathing French.
Let's talk about the time when you started. So you started with self study because with Frenchify you started at B1, and before than that you did A1 A2 by yourself, or you did the previous preparation by yourself. So why did you take that decision first, that instead of joining, or like instead of joining any any sessions, any classes, you would just like to do self study by your own? How yeah, or were you doing something else? How were you practicing at A1 A2?
So that like goes to a background story. When I was in grade 12 and COVID hit, I was supposed to come to Canada, but because of COVID, my intake got delayed. So I was sitting in India doing nothing. So I was like, might as well study the second language that Canada has. So at even after grade 12, I joined two A1 and A2 programs from Alliance Française. And then it was just that I studied for those 6 months and never touched French again. And then I came to Canada. I realized that I've come after 12th. I need French for my residency. The government is changing all the rules. I rediscovered the basics on my own. So I did that. And when I felt confident in A1, A2, that's when I joined B1, because at that point I needed specific guidance on how to crack the exam.
Okay, so just one quick update. If you're watching this video, I have a discount code for you. If you want to enroll in Frenchify programs, make sure to use this discount code Appaar50 and you'll be able to get $50 discount on Frenchify beginner programs. So please make sure to hurry up, as this is available only for first 10 students, those who sign up. And when you joined B1 Intensive, what was the biggest difference that you immediately felt comparing to the study that you were doing earlier?
The biggest difference was that B1 intensive is very targeted. It's very targeted toward TEF. When you're doing A1 and A2, it's like generic French. You're learning bonjour, bonsoir, and then the conjugations, basic, male, female, all of that. But then once you come into B1, it just streamlines itself into this target.
Perfect. That's great. And how did that change your approach towards your preparation as well? Because generally, I believe when you were studying earlier, you were doing more generic French, which was targeted to just understanding the language and do more language consumption. But once you went on to B1, how, like, what used to be your weekly, I would say, weekly schedule or weekly study routine? Just a generic, like not too much in depth, but generally, what were the things that you were focusing more on once you started with B1, and how much was the balance between grammar versus RLSW modules?
I think when I started B1, it was, I would say, again, 2 to 3 hours every day that I would give to it, and then weekends pe jitta ho paye uta. There was not a lot of pressure then, and I had time, so I took it easy. If you have more time, you can do more and get done with the process faster. That goes without saying. But I think what I most focused on when I joined B2 was speaking, because A1 A2 is just like you're reading, you're understanding, but speaking is a different ball game because you have the pronunciation, you have the accents, you have French in itself. It's like you either speak it in a flow or there's pauses in everything. So that first time you have to really get in the habit of speaking it, because I remember we were doing our section A's and formulating sentences on spot, and I also exchanged contacts with the students in the group, and we did our own speaking practice when the class wasn't taking place, so that helped a lot too. And with that B1, I went into listening as well. Earlier it was just reading, just writing, grammar, what I could do on my own, but now I'm focusing on more listening, understanding, comprehension. With that, all of the resources were available from you guys, which we could find on the internet, like RFI, Easy French. Easy French is one of my favorite YouTube channels at this point. Easy French, RFI, TV Sank Mont. So listening really increased, and then we went into writing. So we also do Section A writings in B1 level as well. So that was more towards, okay, first I am, because in A1 A2 what I was doing was je vais je vais le faire. But then in B1 intensive, it went to like more complex sentences and more passé composé, plus que parfait, more timeline structuring your writing. So that is also yeah. That also took time. So B1 is like a huge phase and a chunk. So
True, true. And I'm really curious to ask this because I just want to know. You did A1, A2, and then you started with B1 intensive. What made you start with Frenchify? What was like, oh, this is this Vyom guy, I want to study French with Vyom. Like, what made you take this decision?
So at that time, I had a few options, but I wasn't really sure where to go. But then you had so many YouTube videos uploaded and testimonials uploaded, and I talked to one of the guys for intake and everything. And this guy, he cleared TEF himself, and now he has a company where he helps people to clear the exam. So obviously he's been through the process, he knows what he's doing, so he can help us easily. So I just pulled the trigger at that point.
Perfect. Thank you so much for trusting in Frenchify, and now your result speaks for that. I want to ask one more question. It's regarding your immigration profiling. When you were, I believe, because you mentioned that you already studied French A1 A2 earlier, so I think you didn't have a big pressure. Ki, okay, I have to do a lot of work in just small amount of time. So I think you are still, and when you were learning French, you were still on work permit, right? And did you have any limitations on work permit? Ki, okay, it's expiring in 6 months from now, 7 months from now. That's why I have to do it soon, or were you like chill with it?
I had some time. I had like 2 years on my work permit when I started, but Yeah, that was because as soon as I was done with my college diploma, I was like, okay, what are the options? What are the options? So the sooner you decide which pathway you want to take and the sooner you get into it, the better the overall journey is going to be for you.
Correct. That's true. That's completely true because the more a student is waiting that I'll start next month, I'll start next month. They are literally shaving off the time from their work permit, which is very very valuable. And later now,
Yeah.
a lot of students, they later realize कि, okay, now the work permit is about to expire, but they are focusing on getting CLB 7 before that, but it will expire, or they might have to change their. It's still possible after the work permit expiry. It's not like then you just have to go back to India. Obviously one can stay on visitor record, but it's better that when you are on work permit, just give it that, so that there is no extra pressure on your head. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that. And now let's talk about after B1. Now let's talk about B2, a TEF prep. So, what mentally changed for you, Apar, when you moved from B1 to B2?
Mentally, what changed for me was that this is the big game now. We're in the big leagues. We're gonna be doing section Bs of everything. I remember when I was in B1 and we were doing the shadowing session of B2 students, and I used to struggle asking questions for section A, and I used to see them. I'm like, these guys are arguing with each other. Like, what's going on? How will I ever get to that level? But when I moved to B2, I was like, okay, now I'm here, so I'm gonna have to do it somehow. I don't know how, but I'm gonna have to do it. So the biggest change I think with B2 was the introduction of the section Bs of TEF. And with B2, you go into more. So listening increases. You start decoding the RFI audios, the 2 minute, 2 minute 30 audios, the interviews. And then once you go into B2, you always end up getting Prep My Future, which is also a great resource for preparing for TEF Canada. And the resources increase, the amount of work increases, and you just have to go more into it with more intensity. So just like how I said in B1, it used to be 2 3 hours, itna pressure nahi tha, light tha. But once I entered B2, I was like, no, I have to do more because just weekends isn't gonna cut it.
When you were practicing at B2, which was the comparatively, which was the hardest module for you? That okay, this is where I'm doing a lot of work, but I still see very minute improvements. And what was the module which was like, okay, even if I do my practice, I'm able to see good improvement? So, which were the two modules which was the most and least difficult for you?
I think I think writing would be the most difficult for me, because my writing wasn't because there's also a drawback to self study because I noticed this when I was doing my writing that sometimes my bases weren't that strong. I was making minor conjugation errors here and there. I was forgetting the e. जब प्लूरल होता है तो प्लूरल फेमिनिन तो ई एस ऐड करना होता है, ये सब. So like those rules were not ingrained in me when I was doing A1 A2, neither in B1. But well, I was told about them in B1, but it really didn't come into that big of a play when I was writing the B2. And it was kind of hard to get those rules down and stop making those silly mistakes. So I think the toughest would be writing, but as with anything, especially for my case, I went from 5 to 8 with writing. And writing, I think it's the more you practice, the better you get at it. But you also have to make sure that you're not repeating the same mistakes you did in your previous writing. And writing, it's just volume. I would say the first 6 to 7 writings, don't even judge yourself on it because that's nothing. You're just building a base. If you pick your first writing and then you pick your last 30th writing, you'll see zameen asman ka farak between them. So I would say first 10 writings, don't even be harsh on yourself. Just thank yourself that you wrote. But also also go through the mistakes and make sure that you're keeping time in mind and all of that, because I know time was a real issue for me even before. Like TEF exam was the first time I was able to write section A and section B in time. Even with that, I wasn't able to revise it.
Okay. Yeah, time is a crucial constraint, especially for section B. Like 35 minutes, it goes by very very quick. But yeah, more practice, correct? Because more volume you give, the more it helps you retain the structures, and the more you are reviewing your writings, the more it helps you understand ki which grammatical mistakes you are making, which you should not repeat more. So great advice on that. And let's talk about speaking sessions, Apar. Now, yeah, for B1 as well, we were doing speaking, but I specifically want to talk about speaking sessions at B2 because that's where our main progress happened. So, how did live speaking sessions help you build, confidence and overall structure and exam readiness? Because I believe the instructors as well, they had a same I think they really helped you when it comes to working on your mistakes and share how do you feel in the speaking sessions.
So the speaking sessions are always great, even when we were doing section A, even when there was like a blank phase or you were trying to formulate a question, they'd note down where you're kind of hesitating, and then they'll give you ideas on how to build on it and work on it. And speaking especially was good because when I moved from B1 to B2, speaking really went easy for me because section A we're supposed to ask formal questions, but section B it goes to doing like conversing with a friend. So that I felt like was more easier when I went into section B, because although you were trying to convince, it was like a conversation with a friend. So you could use a lot of generic vocabulary and a lot of basic structures, which gives you a lot of confidence in general, because you feel like this is a strange language and you're not able to speak it, but once you at least speak it for 5 minutes or like have a conversation with the examiner, it gives you a lot of confidence, and based on that confidence you go out to get more.
Perfect, correct. That's true. Very very true. So how like what would be your overall experience with French? If I want to know, like how would you, let's say if a friend would like to learn French, what would you say to them regarding Frenchify?
I would say to them that definitely join them if you want to learn for French, and if it's especially for immigration purposes, because the journey has been smooth, the guidance has been great. It's not like Frenchify will give you your score, but they will guide you. You'll have to do the work at the end of the day yourself. There's no running away from that, but the guidance is required, is needed, because you can run, but you don't know where the target is. These guys know where the target is. They'll head you towards the target. The running, that's what you have to do.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. Thank you so much, Apar. Apar. So now let's talk about day when you were giving TEF Canada exam. Which location was it? Like where did you go to give the exam?
It was the Mississauga location, which I really like. I that felt like for a minute there, I was like in some Paris street. So kudos to the location.
That's good. Not only you're giving a French exam, but you're also getting a feel of being in.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. And I also want to talk about the booking criteria, or I wouldn't really say booking criteria, but the time you book, because these days the dates are getting filled up very quickly. And when you book the exam, how soon did you book it for? And like, were you like, okay, I want to book for this date, or were you like, okay, whatever date I can get, I'll just book for the nearest one?
So I booked almost 2 months earlier. I booked in September end or November beginning. That's when I booked, and I booked for December. And immediate 1 month later, ki to dates available hi nahi thi. The dates were available starting December, so I had a few options in December, but I was like, I'm just gonna do December 15 because I didn't want to have too much time on my belt, because that again means that I was going to be lethargic or I was not going to do things properly. So that's why I chose that specific timing for me. It's also when you book the test, it also depends on which level you are and how much you can personally get done in that specific time frame. If you feel like you have a big thing coming up or some important engagement, you'll be busy, then obviously take a few days out and then push the date back. But yeah.
Sounds good. And walk us through the day, like the whole morning up to the time your first exam started. So before the reading starts, from the time you woke up, like what was the whole routine like? What was the whole day like?
So even before waking up, I would say sleep well the night before, and don't stress too much. I know it's easier said than done, but the day before the exam, all you need to do is revise, eat well, sleep well, wake up the next day. So my exam was in the morning, so I didn't really revise a lot. But what I did do was I listened to one French audio and I read one like Le Monde article. That is because I feel personally, once I'm in a flow of listening or reading, it gets better versus when I start fresh. My brain kind of gets warmed up to that language. So since I was going into the test, I didn't want to be like my brain is warming up while I'm doing the test. I already warmed it up a bit before, and then in the exam I was ready to go. So I didn't do like any intensive practice or revision or anything. It was just like a normal small warm up.
And talking about the staff over there, were they all welcoming, like, or were they all dry, or how were they?
They were all welcoming. Everyone had a smile on their face. The exam did start a few minutes late, but it doesn't really matter. Wasn't a big deal. It was not too late, but it was like 8 minutes late. So, but you're supposed to arrive there 15-20 minutes before the exam. I would just say arrive around that point just so you can calm the nerves when you're there. Obviously, it's an exam, you're going to be nervous.
Correct. I'm going to talk about all the four modules in its proper order. Okay. The exam starts with reading, and then we go on to listening. Then there is writing, and then at the end, there is a speaking slot for you, right? So let's start from reading right now. When you started with reading, and you can talk about reading and listening both of them together, because they are both of them are time based, both of them are MCQs. We can get the advice in together for both of them. So
Yeah.
how was the experience in reading and listening exam?
I would say the first 20 questions, you want to get them done in near 25 minutes, maximum 30. If you get stuck in a question in the first 20s, don't give it too much time because you'll lose out time on the end questions. The end questions obviously have more weightage and they require more time and more attentiveness. They're more complex than the first 20. So, more time towards the end of the last 20 questions. And yeah, reading, you just have to keep in mind that you're not spending too much time or you're not, going off track or daydreaming. Because there is a possibility. I don't know. uh, yeah.
When you're doing listening, you can always be like, when you're listening or reading, the mind always wants to go to the traffic outside and the horns outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, what I did with my reading was I still had my headphones on for my reading, just because it like cancels any and all noises that go on. Even in the exam, there's not a lot of noises, but I just had it just to be in the zone. And listening was reading. Also, why I suggest not to spend too much time on a question is because you can always go back and forth. So let's say you do end up doing all the 40 questions and you felt like question 23, I'm not really sure, I need to give it a second read. So at that point of time, if you do have 5 minutes, might be worth to take a look. But once the 40 are done, and for listening, listening flew by. Listening, there's no time to think, there's no time to contemplate anything. Listening, you just have to listen. That's it. Listen, and select the answers. What I did was, for me personally, because listening questions can be a bit tricky how they formulate it, and sometimes there will be a word that you won't understand or something like that. So what I used to do was, I used to read the question very properly. Like, if the question is salon expert, uh, what do they deduct of this? So I would focus on that more rather than the four options given, because I need to get an idea what the expert is feeling. So I would glimpse through the four options and get a generic idea of what is the difference in between each option, rather than knowing what the options are, the difference between the options, and properly contemplating the questions. This is something I did in my mock test too. So even if you don't have a lot of time to understand the question before the audio starts, you can at least know what to look out for. And that's the biggest thing, because most of these end audios, I myself didn't understand it completely. But since I knew what I knew to look out for, I was able to get that.
Yeah, great advice. And yeah, again, the score speaks for itself, So that's great. And let's talk about the listening technical errors which might occur, or the overall technical experience, which means headphones. Do they provide you headphones? I think they also, when you book the exam, they say, "Keep bring your own headphones." Did they provide you headphones? Did you use them? How was the experience?
They did provide me headphones, but I didn't use them. I took my own headphones and my own audio thing, because for in the exam you want to be as comfortable as possible. The headphones there they have are not the best. They're just cheap. They won't cover your ear properly. They won't feel comfortable. If you're distracted at anything other than the listening, even if it's readjustment, it requires some part of your brain to activate to readjust those headphones. But I didn't want anything, nothing. So I took my own headphones in, and yeah, that was that. So I don't know how their audio quality would be on their headphones.
I would recommend a proper noise cancelling headphones. Like, these were the similar ones.
Yeah.
I remember, like, it was like a few years back, so I don't obviously these are new, but I had a similar ones, like, which properly covers your ears so that you don't have any noise. And during the reading as well, because I remember that really makes you focus more, because when there are a lot of noises in your ears, you still get distracted. So it's always good to wear headphones all the time, unless we come into writing and speaking. So now let's talk about writing and speaking as well. Okay, so just one quick update. If you're watching this video, I have a discount code for you. If you want to enroll in Frenchify programs, make sure to use this discount code Appaar50, and you'll be able to get $50 discount on Frenchify beginner programs. So please make sure to hurry up, as this is available only for first 10 students, those who sign up. First of all, for writing, do you remember the topics which came in the exam for section and section B? Just give us global or the overall, what were they asking about?
So for writing section A, it was that this girl went to a zoo and she got locked, enclosed in a panda enclosure, and what a great friendship they had. So that was section A, and section B was that we should provide vegetarian food in school canteens. Or we should, not sure, provide, or we should only have vegetarian food. It was around those lines.
Okay. And when you were writing, let's talk about the writing part. Once your writing starts, uh, what is in front of you? Is it a French keyboard, or is it a normal keyboard with the accents on screen? How is that experience?
It is a normal keyboard. The accents are on screen. So for that experience, what I would recommend is a week before the TEF exam, just whatever computer you're used to, because there's shortcuts in the computers for accent aigu, accent circumflex. But whatever computer you're used to, last 7 days when you're practicing writing, go online, find a French online keyboard where they just give you the accents. So what I did a few days before the exam, just so I could get used to, taking the mouse and putting it on top to have the accent, because I'm always all control this and the accent appears. But for the exam, you have to be mentally prepared, because that also takes time and that can decrease your writing speed. So before the exam, 7 days before, I went on to the online keyboard. I used to do my writing there, and I used to add the structures. So when I did the exam, I was already comfortable with doing that.
Perfect. That's great. And talking about the section B of writing, because that's a bigger one, holds more weightage. So I want to ask specifically about section B. When you saw the topic, what was your overall plan? Because I remember when we were doing writing sessions as well, in that we discussed key always go with two ratios, 2:1 ratio, and follow that particular plan that we have in the structures. So how did you apply that plan to the section B writing part?
Yeah. So for that, it was the 2:1 was really good, because three all or against, as you said, gets boring. And if you want to show your language competency, it has to be 2:1 ka ratio. So for that, I used the arguments that a vegetarian food is healthy. So that was like for the statement. B, vegetarian food is more environment friendly. It has a lower carbon footprint. So if C les écoles veulent lutter contre le réchauffement climatique, they have to do it. So that was my second argument. And my third was, everyone has their le droit de choix. Everyone has the right to choose, so we can't impose anything. If the students want to have non-vegetarian food with chicken, then they should be allowed to have that. So because we can't like impose anything on anyone. So that was my third argument. And my then we did the conclusion. Bien que it poses a lot of advantage, we must find a equilibrium, and the ending. So the structure explained during the writing classes really helped me out. That structure is like bang on, chef's kiss. You can't go wrong with that. You can't go wrong with that structure. That's the thing. All you have to do is just think of the arguments. That's all you have to do on your end. Other rest is sorted.
And what about speaking? Section A, section B. Yeah, like what were the topics in section A and section B speaking, and then how did you tackle them? How did you converse with the examiner on them?
Okay, so luckily for me, I actually kept saying myself, even before I booked the exam, that when I'll do speaking, I'll get the topics that I've already spoken on. And that's what happened. I got the topics that I had already spoken on. I got for section A, I got the sondage. So I had to call the company and I had to ask them what, is it full time? Is it part time? Are there congé pay? Are there health benefits? All of that. But I would say, because speaking was the area which was the most tricky for me, and here's why. listening reading happens Listening, reading, writing happens very fast. There's not, even if you go into the exam not anxious, you'll be fine. But there was 1 hour gap between writing and speaking. So that 1 hour gap was like, okay, I got so anxious by the time I don't know why, but it happens. But I got so anxious. I remember I was sitting there, I was doing breathing exercises to, keep my heart rate slow and all of that. But what happened was, I was formulating a question in section A and I freezed. I froze big time, and it was like a 20-second pause after my fourth question. There was a 20-second pause, because there was a 5-second pause. But then as soon as that 5-second pause went to the 6 second, my brain went haywire. Like, all the other modules went good. You fucked up here. No, sorry. You messed up here big time, and you messed up here big time. All the other modules good. What are you gonna do? So like all of those thoughts kept coming in my mind, but then I was like, Okay, then I finally remembered the question I was gonna ask, like around the end of that 20 seconds. So I got those questions, I locked back in, and I was able to ask 5 or 6 more questions. So that was that. Section A for me went okay because of that pause. I wasn't really confident, and but since we had done so much practice, my questions were already framed in a good manner. It's just that that pause and the confidence in speaking decreased a bit. But the examiner was friendly, and they were okay. They were responding properly even before and after the exam. They were very warm. So since this happened in section A, I had like a 1 minute pause between section A and section B. And when I saw the topic for section B, it was the sports topic, online sports class, get fit at your home. So yeah, we did it. We did it. So luckily I got that topic, and during that 1 minute I basically, for me, uh, during the first minute I always think of how I'm gonna introduce the topic, because your introduction always varies to the topic. The rest arguments is gonna be around the same lines of equilibrium between work and, anxiety and all of that, which we've already practiced. So the arguments, I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about the introduction. So during the first minute I did the introduction, and then we so what happened with that, I think section A में जो pause हुआ, something in me snapped before I started section B, and I was like, look, there is still chance, don't mess up here. Section B has more weightage. Even if you messed up a bit on section A, that's fine. If you do section B great, that will make up for it. So just be calm and do this once, do this right, because everything depends on it. अब ये भी आ रहा था बार बार, everything depends on it, because I knew the other 3 modules were good. I told you as soon as I was done with listening and reading, I was like, हाँ पक्का CLB 8 आने हैं दोनों में, कोई दिक्कत नहीं होनी. But that's why I even had that pressure built on now. Now अगर speaking mess up कर दी तो फिर reattempt देना पड़ेगा. So that but since the topic was familiar, I was able to lock in. But my examiner also was, she was nice, but she was not the classic examiner. I think we went through 10 or 11 arguments.
Oh. So was she
Yeah.
interrupting just after like one minute, and would she not let you complete any argument at all?
No. She would let me complete the arguments, but since it was going back and forth so fast, she had to keep presenting the arguments, because there's the classic. So I think I can tell a few arguments that she gave me. She was like, if I do exercise it at home, where am I going to do it? I don't have a lot of space. So that I said, you have an extra saal in your house, you can use it there, you can use that space to do it. Then she said, I'm very clumsy, I might hit myself. Then what's gonna happen? I live alone with my cat, who's gonna help me? I was like, okay, this is a weird argument, but I was like, okay, I mean, you should try it. There's always a risk, but il faut pas tirer de conclusion trop vite. Si tu n'essayes jamais, tu ne saurais jamais. So all of this, because that's what we do, right? When we practice section B, it's like back and forth argument, especially with Darshan. He gives me so many arguments, and most of my speakings were with Darshan. I told Darshan, when I was doing my speaking, it felt like I was doing my speaking with you, because there were arguments every 1 minute.
And yeah, a big thanks to Darshan as well, because his advice has really helped students to focus on the specific things, because he has more recent experience in the exam, right? On how the exam is happening these days. So he really have those small tricks and techniques to help the students in the exam. So I want to thank Darshan on that as well. And same thing, that you mentioned about messing up in speaking. Recently, Shalini gave her exam. She also messed up, but she still got a very good score. Pulkit, recently he cleared the exam. he also messed up but still got a very good score. So actually it's not about one or two errors or one or two mishaps which may happen in the exam, and you as well, you made a mishap but it's but still you got a very good score, which concludes that you can do mistakes, but at the end it's about how can you have a French conversation, because we are humans, it's part of the nature to do mistakes when we get anxious, so examiners know that as well. But as long as you are flexing your language, as long as you are showing that you're comfortable in the language, that is all that matters.
Yeah. Exactly on point. Because even with that 20-second gap, I was able to get a good score. And I think that's mostly because, as I told you, I was more comfortable in section B because that's conversing with a friend rather than section A, which is formal. So that way, with section B, the arguments were going back and forth, and there was no breaks in section B. And when you're talking with a friend, I naturally feel more confident because it's a friend, like you can't go wrong with anything you say. So all you have to do is just say with confidence, and that's what I did. Plus I had already worked on the topic, so I already had that confidence. But I think, yeah, the fact that I was immediately replying to her arguments is what pushed me over the edge and covered up the thing in section B.
One thing I want to mention to everybody is section B is not about how well can you how well can you respond to the argument, because that's not even the purpose. The purpose is how can you have a friendly conversation in French. As you mentioned apart that it can be weird arguments, weird responses to the arguments, and that's correct. Why? Because it's not a debate. It's a conversational section where they are checking your conversational skills. So sometimes we can also, let's say examiner says ki the same example you gave, I am clumsy, I might not be able to do this, and even though your argument did not even though your response did not exactly answer to the argument, but that's how we converse within friends. But you should try, it's il faut essayer encore, il faut essayer une fois, et après ça tu peux décider après ça tu peux décider si tu veux le faire ou non. So stuff like that always helps. So sometimes we should also stop overthinking about speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Not overthink the speaking. Yeah, because even if you don't directly give the thing, because, yeah, exactly how you said, because she also gave me one argument that this is the online course, my internet isn't working. So what am I going to do? I was like, well, you have to get your internet fixed for your Tashkoti Dian, so you can try this after you're done fixing your internet. So that again didn't answer it directly, but it was like what you would say to a normal friend. So yeah, exactly what you said.
Correct. Sounds good. Now let's come on to the most interesting part of our TEF Canada attempt, the reevaluation. Okay, which is the writing reevaluation that we demanded for. Yeah, how was the process? I know when you received the exam, you sent it to me, you sent it to Darshan, and we saw that writing it was CLB 5. How did you decide to put it to reevaluation, and then how is the process of application of reevaluation? Explain both of these things.
Okay, so I got the score. I was really, down in the dumps. I was like, okay, I wanted to do this in my first attempt, but I guess it's not happening. So I kept, because as I told you, I wasn't able to revise my writing, but at the same time, I was very happy because it was the first time I was able to finish my writing in itself. So, what I did was, I slept over it. My result came Saturday. I decided to do, after talking to you and Darshan, I decided to do the reevaluation. First, I booked my second attempt because the dates were going so fast. I had to book my second attempt in Ottawa, as we discussed. But after booking my second attempt, I sent it out for evaluation because I was doubtful myself, because I was like, they gave me a 5. not even a 6. If it was a 6, reevaluation 7 ho sakta hai, possible hai. But 5 to 7, how will that be possible? But at the same time, I was like, I know what I wrote. There was some good lines in there because, like lute contre le réchauffement climatique. Writing that right is like a high level expression. It's not just B2 or like B1. So I was like, you know what, let me try it, because I went on the website. The second thing that helped me and motivated me to do the reevaluation was the process in itself was simple. All you need to do is go into your account. Once your result comes down, you have a tab for reevaluation. You go there, you put in your comment of what you want to get reevaluated and why. You attach a document. For me, I don't know what document I was supposed to attach, so I attached my result. And I sent it through, and then the next I think next day it got reevaluated, and they were like, you know what, you get a CLB 8. So I was like,
One thing is, if you're confident that you wrote that high level, then it is always worth evaluating. Now, even though if you're not confident, sure, put into reevaluation. But in your case, I believe the thing was that you were confident about it, that at least it's not CLB 5, like the way you wrote it. All it does, because okay, you know what, let me read the text that you sent to them, the one that you put in the application. Je crois que mes productions écrites ont correctement répondu aux tâches demandées, respecté le format requis et démontré une bonne cohérence, un vocabulaire approprié ainsi que des structures grammaires correspondant à niveau CLB supérieur. Bien qu'il puisse y avoir quelques erreurs orthographes, je pense que la qualité globale de ma réponse à la section B était satisfaisante. And then later we requested for it. So, which does show that you admit that okay, even though there may be some errors, but globally you wrote in such a way that will really deserve a good score. And
Yes.
that is something which you can only decide if you are confident in your writing. And that also is something which, because the thing is, a lot of students, they still put into reevaluation, and I would still recommend, if they want to, they definitely should, but it's not always in all the cases that reevaluation get accepted, because there have been some students who have put it into reevaluation and for them it got rejected. But for some, it gets accepted if they actually find that they made a mistake on their hand.
and that's why I was also hesitant of sending it for reevaluation, because I was like, what if they reject it? But then I told myself, then they reject it, we already have a second attempt booked.
Let's talk about Appar's advice for beginners, those who are learning French, or those who are planning to start learning French, or who are just in the beginning phase of their learning. So, Appar, what would you say to someone who is just starting French, and they are feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling scared, or if they're feeling unsure whether they'll be able to do this or not? What would you advise them?
I would advise that everything when you start is going to be difficult. The first day is going to be difficult. The second day is going to seem difficult. The first week is going to be difficult. But once you keep going through it, that difficult slowly becomes easy. But then the level of difficulty also increases. So you have to increase your level with the difficulty level. So it's a lot of work. It's commitment. But if there's a will, there's a way. And all I can say is, don't people think that, oh, why is 80 not 80 but 41? It doesn't make sense, and they keep in that loop, and they hate the language, and they're like, it's so stupid, like why do we have to add es and all of that? Why can't it just be stop, like aret, but aret feminine, aret plural, and that. But don't think of that in a negative way, more of it as how the language is beautiful in itself, because everything is unique in its own way. And for me, even when I was learning, there were so many people complaining about how difficult the language was and all of this, but I was like, I have to do it. There's no point complaining about it, because that's going to demotivate me even more. So I might as well actually like the language, love it if possible, and then it will be easier for me, because if you love something, it gets easier for you. So that's what I did during my B1, B2 is I did more of the things in French. Like I said, I loved easy French videos. That doing that didn't feel like I was studying French, because it was so easy. It was they're interviewing people on the streets, and it's natural French and all of that. So even some of the advice that they gave in the easy French videos is still stuck with me, and it keeps playing in my mind in French. So I would say try and love the language instead of hating it or being angry at it, or it's too difficult, because that the language is that way. You just have to be a part of it.
Correct. Great advice. Anyhow, you have to do it. So you better enjoy it. That's the thing. You better enjoy it.
Exactly.
Okay. And about any sacrifices you made in your personal life while you were learning French?
Yes, a lot of sacrifices. Sacrifices of mental peace, sacrifices related to health, sacrifices related to personal pleasure. But no pain, no gain. You have to lose something to get something at the end of the day. And this is like a competency that, if you're in Canada, will really help you, especially if you're outside Quebec or a French speaking province, because in those areas, people who are bilingual are valued more in job sector and all of that. But even if you don't care about that, I would recommend, what you should care about is talking when how because what really makes it worth it is when I'm able to hold a natural fluent conversation with a Quebecois or a Parisian. And I have a lot of Quebecois people coming at work. When I traveled to Alberta, I met a lot of Quebecois and Parisian people. And when I was conversing with them, that feeling was just something else. It was like, I am actually able to talk. They're actually able to understand me. And that's what made it worth it for me for French, because I was like, it's like no one expects you to know such a difficult language, especially if you're Indian. And Indian people mostly learn English, and that's basically it. And French is, it's at that point you're introducing yourself to a different culture. I remember when I started learning French, I instead of bread, I started buying baguettes. Instead of cheese, I started doing so. Like, those lifestyle changes also matter. I went to this French bakery and I talked to them in French. I gave my order in French, so that also happens. And you've got to keep doing these things.
No, that's great. And I want to ask one personal question. When you told your parents about it, and when you told your friends about it, what did they say? What was their reaction regarding this?
Friends made fun, parents supported. Ooh, ooh, baguette, baguette. That's how they made fun of the language more than the fact that I was using it. But it doesn't matter what people or even parents say. It's all just noise. If you have to do it, then you have to do it, and you have to block the noise.
True. No. Good that you have supportive parents and supportive friends. That's all we need, because at the end of the day, all you need is a reassurance of the people who are close to you. I really want to obviously congratulate you, but also I really want to appreciate your hard work that you have put through these recent months, and all the best in everything that you do in future. And thank you so much, Appaar, for joining, and thank you for trusting Friendshify throughout this.
No problem. Thank you for creating this company so people like me can stay and potentially follow their dreams in Canada. So yeah,
my pleasure. So recently we have changed Friendshify platform, which has even accelerated and even made the learning fun for all the students. And you can read some of the reviews of the students in the portal on how they're finding this program. Friendshify program does not just offer you an online program to study well. It gives you a proper ecosystem in which you are able to study with the proper step-by-step syllabus. With that, you get proper daily tasks to complete, habits to build, engage with the community and post your doubts, update your progress in the feed, take part in weekly challenges, and submit your your challenge check-in. With that, you also get your dashboard on Frenchify with Vyom application. And this is even better. Why? Because if you're at work, you can start learning French. If you're at home, you can obviously learn French. If you're in the bus, you can always open Frenchify with Vyom app and you can do listening practice or whatever task you have for that particular day. So I'm very proud to offer this service to you because I believe that this is going to make your language learning journey so fun. So I'll see you on the other side. Make sure. So if you are struggling learning French because it feels too boring and you do not have a proper ecosystem to study, this is the perfect time to sign up. But what I recommend is before signing up, make sure to check out my free beginner program, which will give you a proper demonstration of the application as well as the whole Frenchify ecosystem and the portal. Do that and I'll see you in the next one.